The friendship that looked perfect. They say your best friend is supposed to be your biggest cheerleader. Mine? She clapped the loudest, until I started shining brighter. And that's when her applause turned into envy. My name is Ariana, and for most of my life, I thought I was lucky to have a best friend like Clara. We met in middle school, two girls who instantly clicked over our shared love for music, fashion, and the dream of making something big out of small beginnings. People used to call us inseparable. We'd finish each other's sentences, wear matching clothes, and promise that no matter what happened, we'd always have each other's back. At least, that's what I believed. Clara was beautiful, outgoing, and confident, the kind of girl everyone noticed when she entered a room. And me? I was the quiet one. The type who smiled more than she spoke, who preferred sketching dresses in the back of class over talking about crushes. But things started to shift during high school. People began complimenting me, my hair, my smile, my eyes. At first, I didn't think much of it, until I noticed the way Clara's eyes changed whenever someone said, "Ariana, you look stunning today." It wasn't obvious at first. Just small things. She'd make backhanded compliments like, "Your lucky makeup suits you, not everyone can hide tired skin like that." Or post group photos that somehow always cropped me out. I told myself I was overthinking. But envy doesn't start as a storm, it starts as a whisper. Before I tell you what happened next, don't forget to subscribe. Because what looks like friendship on the surface can hide something much darker underneath, and you'll want to see how it unfolds. By the time we reached college, our friendship looked flawless online. Our selfies got hundreds of likes. People called us #BestieGoals. But behind those smiling photos was a quiet competition I never signed up for. Clara started copying everything I did, my clothes, my hairstyle, even the way I talked. It might sound flattering, but when someone starts mirroring your life, it stops being admiration, it becomes obsession. I didn't realize how deep it ran until the day of my first fashion showcase. It was a small university event, my debut as a student designer. I had poured my heart into creating 3 dresses inspired by my mother's paintings. When I stepped on stage and saw the crowd cheering, I felt proud. For once, I wasn't the quiet girl behind Clara. I was me. But afterward, when the professor announced that I'd won the Emerging Talent Award, I looked for Clara in the audience, and she wasn't clapping. Her expression wasn't joy. It was anger. Pure, silent anger. Later that night, she didn't congratulate me. She simply said, "You're lucky they like your face. It sells better than talent sometimes." That line stayed with me for years. I tried to brush it off, told myself it was just a bad day. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was about to grow into something poisonous. Days turned into months. We still hung out, but something had changed. Her laughter felt forced. Her compliments were colder. And when I started getting internship offers from small fashion studios, she told me, "Don't get too excited, Ari. They probably just need someone pretty to stand in the photos." That hurt. Coming from a stranger, it would have meant nothing. But from someone I loved like a sister? It broke something inside me. I began to realize that Clara didn't want to lose me, she wanted to keep me below her. Her friendship wasn't built on love. It was built on control. Our final year in college changed everything. We both applied for a highly competitive fashion program abroad, something we dreamed of since we were teenagers. We even made a pact, if one of us got in, we'd help the other get there next year. I spent nights perfecting my portfolio. When I submitted it, I prayed for just a chance. 2 weeks later, I received the email that changed my life. I got accepted. I remember screaming with joy, running to tell Clara. She hugged me, tightly. But I swear I felt her shoulders stiffen, her jaw clench. And when she stepped back, her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm so happy for you," she said softly. But her eyes told another story. 2 days later, the unimaginable happened. The school called me to say there had been an issue, a plagiarism report filed against my portfolio. They claimed some of my designs were copied from another student. My heart dropped. That was impossible. And when I checked my email, there it was, an anonymous message with photos of my sketches uploaded online, dated weeks before my submission. Someone had framed me. Only one person had access to my drafts. Clara. She stole my dreams and watched me fall. But I didn't fight back, not yet. Because sometimes, silence is the most dangerous kind of revenge. She took everything. When someone pulls the rug from beneath you, the world tilts so fast you can't tell which way is up. One minute I was poised to leave, the next, I was being erased, quietly, efficiently, as if my life were nothing more than a misplaced file. The plagiarism accusation landed like a punch to the stomach. I remember the office fluorescent lights buzzing above me as I scrolled through the anonymous message, the screenshots, the timestamps. Someone had uploaded images of my sketches with a date that made it look like I'd stolen them. My portfolio, painstakingly built over months, suddenly looked like theft. My acceptance letter felt like a lie. I ran to Clara's dorm room. She opened the door in pajama shorts, her hair wrapped in a towel. For a moment I thought she'd be my refuge. My friend would tell me it was a mistake, a glitch. Instead, she stared, the way a stranger might appraise a sudden, unwelcome guest. "Are you okay?" she asked with too much politeness. "Someone framed me," I said. "I need to know if you..." She cut me off, eyes narrowing. "I saw the posts. I'm so sorry." Her voice was laced with the practiced concern she'd always used on other people. "I'll help clear this up. We'll go to the administration together." We went. We sat across from the panel of faculty who asked measured questions, the kind that sounded reasonable but always had the power to bury a student. They showed the images, the timestamps, the anonymous uploader. I explained myself. I explained nights hunched over sketchbooks, my sketches saved on my laptop, drafts sent to my email. I showed file histories. I produced witnesses. I begged them to look deeper. The administration's expression didn't change. They had procedure, they had to protect the school's reputation. "We will investigate," they said. "But until then, we must pause your application." Pause. The word was a polite guillotine. My acceptance was suspended pending inquiry. My heart did a strange double step in my chest. That night, I called Clara. She didn't pick up. I texted. Nothing. When I finally saw her in the hallway 2 days later, she smiled as if nothing had happened. "People just gossip," she murmured. "Don't let it ruin your head." Gossip. The word felt like sand in my mouth. It wasn't gossip. It was a setup. My stomach knotted when I read the name attached to one of the image uploads, a username that matched a handle Clara sometimes used during late-night chats. I wanted to confront her, to demand why she betrayed me, to rip the answer from her like a confession. But part of me was still clinging to the college version of us, the girls who promised forever. Confrontation would have been honest. But honesty, I had learned, rarely rewrites a lie. The rumors spread with a speed that made my head swim. Screenshots took on lives of their own. People who had once cheered for me now whispered in corners. Invitations stopped arriving. Professors who had praised my work began to distance themselves. The silence of abandonment was sharper than any insult. Clara's behaviors shifted in subtle ways that cut deeper than any public slander. She would show up at events I'd planned to attend, smiling at everyone, always somehow one step ahead. She started wearing my signature stud earrings, chopping her hair into a style I'd sketched months earlier. She even began dropping hints about how certain people succeeded because they were good at marketing themselves, not because they were talented. Readers of her social posts began to echo the sentiment. It was a slow suffocation. I met with the school's legal advisor and demanded a thorough forensics check. They ran the files and came back with a bizarre verdict. The metadata on the uploaded images had been manipulated in a way only someone with access to my personal drive and my login could accomplish. They asked about my passwords, my security habits. Meanwhile, the acceptance board remained non-committal. Even when evidence pointed away from me, the stain of suspicion lingered like a bad smell. In institutions, reputation is a fragile thing. Once tarnished, even proven innocence can sound like an excuse. One evening, I stood on the roof of the dormitory and watched the campus glow like a map of my lost opportunities. Clara texted me a single line: "You should be careful who you trust." The cruelty of that sentence made my smile feel like glass. I typed back, "I trusted you." The reply never came. The day the school finally cleared me, after an embarrassing, drawn-out inquiry, the world had already moved on. My acceptance had been rescinded. The program offered the slot to someone else to avoid logistical complications. They apologized with sympathetic emails and offered me a scholarship interview for another term. It felt like being given leftovers. I left college shortly after. Not with a dramatic exit, not with confrontation. I walked out quietly, the way you slip out of a bad movie before the ending credits roll. People asked me why I left. I smiled and said I needed time to find myself. I didn't tell them I left because the promise of being believed and the reality of being erased were too far apart. For months I drifted. I took odd jobs, barista shifts that started at dawn, long nights folding clothes at a boutique, weekend gigs assisting a small wedding photographer who liked my eye for composition. I learned to find refuge in mundane tasks. There's something healing about simple, repetitive work. It quiets the rumble of the past and leaves you room to breathe. While I worked, I also learned the art of discretion. I changed my email addresses, tightened passwords, and stopped sharing drafts with anyone. I stopped posting my work online. My sketches went back into drawers, into boxes labeled archives, because vulnerability had become a liability. The girl who once dreamt aloud turned inward, shaping plans that needed secrecy more than applause. I enrolled in night classes to study business and intellectual property law. It felt pragmatic, almost cold, but the decision was deliberate. If I couldn't rely on others to protect my work, I would build the tools myself. The more I studied, the more I understood how power moves: contracts, copyrights, name rights, brand protections. I learned the legal language that could turn rumors into paper and paper into proof. Each lecture was an instrument being added to an arsenal I hadn't yet named. Months turned into years. I kept my promise to myself, to return not as the hurt girl but as someone who could hold her ground without shouting. I saved aggressively, took freelance contracts designing small lines for local boutiques under a pseudonym, and slowly built a discreet portfolio. I learned to network in rooms where people never asked about where I'd come from. I practiced saying, "I'm Ariana," and then talking about design, not betrayal. Clara's name would surface occasionally in industry gossip. She was always there at the right launches, the right parties, the right Instagram posts. She built a reputation for being naturally gifted at trends, and people loved her for it. Sometimes that used to sting. Now it only made the plan sharper. There were nights I wondered if revenge would ever feel satisfying. The anger had cooled into something quieter, a steady focus. I was not driven by spectacle. I wanted to build something that would outlast her momentary triumphs. I wanted to stack small victories like stones and then reveal the structure I had assembled. When I finally decided to re-enter the scene, it wasn't with fireworks. I released a capsule collection under an alias and let it speak. The line impressed a small but influential blogger who praised the craftsmanship and the story behind the pieces. Slowly, clients came. The designs were subtle and unmistakably mine, but they carried the air of someone who'd learned restraint. That silence, my silence, became a language. While she celebrated short-lived wins, I was building something that couldn't be stolen: a name, a legacy, and a silence that spoke louder than any accusation. The rise. Success doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers quietly in rooms your enemies don't even know you've entered. While Clara flaunted borrowed fame, I was building something real, brick by brick, breath by breath. For almost 3 years, I lived behind a new name. No selfies. No online traces. Just long nights stitching fabric and early mornings shipping orders. Every dress I made carried a small tag that read Elysian Threads. No one knew that Elysian was me, Ariana, the girl who'd once been accused, erased, humiliated. When customers asked about the designer, I simply said, she prefers to stay quiet. And in that quiet, I flourished. It started small, local boutiques, then an online drop that sold out in hours. Soon after, influencers began wearing my pieces without realizing whose hands had made them. Irony tastes sweet when the world unknowingly praises the girl it once shunned. But revenge wasn't the goal, yet. I wanted stability, not applause. I wanted a life that couldn't be stolen with a rumor. Then, one morning, a headline caught my eye. Young designer Clara Wells announces her new fashion line. In the photos she wore pieces that looked eerily familiar. Cuts, patterns, even colors I'd once sketched for her feedback years ago. The old sting returned, not sharp but steady, like a reminder. Before I tell you what I did next, take a second to subscribe. Because this isn't the story of revenge through anger, it's about turning patience into power, and you're going to want to see how it unfolds. I studied every image from her launch. Half of it was surface glam, sponsored content, noise. But behind the filters, I saw the truth. She hadn't evolved. She was still copying. Only this time, she didn't know she was copying me again. The world called her innovative. I called her predictable. Instead of rage, I smiled. Because finally, the timing was right. I registered Elysian Threads officially under my real name, Ariana Hart, and applied for trademarks covering every design that had appeared in my line over the past 2 years. Then I waited. 2 weeks later, Clara released her signature spring collection. Within days, my legal team sent her a notice of infringement. The internet erupted. Up-and-coming designer Clara Wells accused of plagiarism. The same accusation she'd once thrown at me now hung around her neck like a chain. Poetic, isn't it? She denied it, of course. Posted long captions about inspiration, coincidence, creative overlap. But screenshots, timelines, and receipts don't lie. And I had plenty. People started connecting the dots. My anonymous brand and her line were compared side by side. Fans noticed similarities, and the tide turned fast. Where once she was called visionary, she was now called a thief. I didn't gloat publicly. I didn't post cryptic quotes or victory selfies. I stayed silent, as always. Because silence, when it's filled with proof, makes the loudest noise. If you've ever been wronged and dreamed of that calm moment when truth exposes itself, subscribe, because the satisfaction you're about to feel isn't fiction, it's patience rewarded. Clara reached out through email. The message began with my old nickname, Ari. For a second, I almost felt the echo of what we'd once been. Then I kept reading. I know you're behind this. Please, can we talk? You're ruining me. Ruining her. The irony nearly made me laugh. She'd ruined me years ago, and I hadn't even fought back. Now karma wore my signature stitching. I met her in a quiet cafe downtown. She looked smaller than I remembered, less polished, her eyes frantic. Ari, she whispered, why are you doing this? I kept my tone level. I'm not doing anything. I'm protecting my work. Just like you taught me. Her face tightened. She wanted me to explode, to yell, to give her a villain so she could play the victim. I refused to give her that satisfaction. Instead, I sipped my coffee and said, the funny thing about silence? It's hard to hear coming, but impossible to ignore once it arrives. She begged. Offered to settle. To collaborate. But the truth was, I didn't need collaboration. I didn't even need her apology. I needed closure. When I stood up to leave, she grabbed my wrist. You're prettier, you're smarter, and now you're successful. What more do you want? I looked her in the eye. Peace, I said. And you can't give me that. After that meeting, I walked out of the cafe into a drizzle that felt like cleansing. The article headlines multiplied over the next month. Fashion bloggers dissected the case, industry magazines covered the legal precedent, and Clara's sponsors quietly dropped her. She vanished from the spotlight the way I once had, but for her, it was public and loud. For me, it had been private and lonely. And even then, I didn't rejoice. Because revenge, when done right, doesn't taste like sweetness, it tastes like stillness. Like breathing without a weight on your chest. My line continued to grow. Orders tripled. One night, I stood in my small studio surrounded by fabric, sketches, and soft music. I realized that the best revenge isn't showing them they hurt you, it's showing them they can't anymore. If you've stayed through this part, make sure to subscribe, because in part 4, Clara isn't gone yet. Sometimes jealousy doesn't die quietly, sometimes it returns with claws. And what happened next tested everything I'd learned about grace, forgiveness, and strength. She wasn't done. When jealousy turns desperate, it stops playing fair. But this time, I wasn't the same girl she could break. The fall. Some people lose once and walk away. Others can't stand watching you win. And when jealousy turns desperate, it becomes dangerous. After the lawsuit went public, my life became a storm of headlines and praise. Fashion blogs called me the comeback queen. Magazines wanted interviews. People who'd ignored me back in college suddenly remembered my name. It was validation I'd once begged for, and now, it was just noise. But Clara's silence unnerved me. She didn't post, didn't defend herself anymore, didn't show her face at events. For a while, I almost pitied her. Almost. Then one morning, my phone buzzed with a message request from an unknown number. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. It was a photo of me, taken outside my studio the night before. The caption read, "Nice to see you thriving. Don't forget where you came from." No name. No number traceable. But I didn't need one. I knew that tone. I'd lived with it. Clara. I told myself not to overreact. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe someone else had sent it. But within a week, the whispers began again, articles questioning whether my success was really mine. Anonymous comments on my posts calling me manipulative, a fraud, a liar. It felt like déjà vu. The same shadow creeping up my back. Except this time, I wasn't a naive student. This time, I had armor. I started documenting everything, screenshots, timestamps, IP traces. My lawyer warned me, if she's behind this, she's cornered. And cornered people bite. He was right. It started with small sabotage. My website crashed multiple times within a week. Clients received fake emails claiming I'd shut down production. Suppliers stopped returning calls after someone pretending to be me sent them rude messages. Clara wasn't trying to win back fame, she wanted to erase me again. At first, anger nearly consumed me. But I remembered something my mentor once said. Don't wrestle in the mud with people who live there. You'll get dirty, and they'll enjoy it. So instead, I got smarter. I quietly hired a cybersecurity team. We traced the fake accounts, tracked their patterns, and linked them back to the same device used in Clara's old PR work. Proof. Cold, undeniable proof. But I didn't expose her immediately. Not yet. Revenge isn't satisfying when it's rushed, it's best served when your enemy believes they've already won. So I played along. I posted cheerful updates, shared behind-the-scenes videos, pretended not to notice the chaos she was causing. And as I smiled for the camera, the trap was tightening. One night, my phone rang again. Clara's voice trembled through the line. "You think you've beaten me?" she hissed. "You think your fake success will last? You stole everything from me." I took a deep breath. "Clara," I said softly. "I didn't steal anything. I just took back what was already mine." There was silence. Then the call disconnected. The next day, her Instagram disappeared. Her website went offline. And by evening, her name hit the news again, but this time, it wasn't because of fashion. It was for harassment, fraud, and defamation. When the police investigation opened, they uncovered everything. The fake accounts. The hacking attempts. Even her anonymous harassment messages. It was all there, a digital trail of envy and desperation. Clara was arrested and charged. The court ordered her to pay damages and issued a restraining order. It wasn't about the money, I didn't want a dime. I just wanted her to stop poisoning the space around me. But when I saw her in court, something strange happened. She looked lost. Not angry, not vengeful, just empty. Like she'd spent so long trying to compete that she forgot who she was without it. As I left the courthouse, cameras flashed, microphones hovered, and reporters shouted for a statement. I paused for a second and said, "Sometimes, people you love will resent your light because it reminds them of their own shadows." My advice? Keep shining anyway. And I walked away. That night, I sat alone in my apartment with a cup of tea and my phone buzzing endlessly with messages of support. But instead of feeling triumph, I felt calm. For the first time in years, I didn't have to fight anyone. I didn't have to prove anything. I'd already won, not because Clara fell, but because I'd risen without losing myself. I looked at the mirror and whispered, "You did it quietly, Ari. You did it your way." And maybe that's the best kind of revenge there is, success so pure, it doesn't need witnesses. They say success changes people. But what if it also tests them? When I got everything I dreamed of, I realized revenge wasn't the end, it was just the beginning of who I was meant to be. The silent victory. When the noise fades, and the cameras turn away, that's when you find out who you really are. Revenge gave me justice, but success? Success tested my soul. It had been a year since Clara's downfall. The storm had passed, and life was finally quiet again. My studio had grown from a cramped single-room space into a bright, sunlit loft filled with fabric rolls, humming sewing machines, and the faint scent of coffee and ambition. My designs were being featured in magazines I used to read as a dreamer. My name, Ariana Hart, had become synonymous with elegance and resilience. People called me the girl who rose from ashes. But behind every flattering headline was a question I couldn't silence. Was I becoming what I once hated? Because with every achievement came whispers of envy, from others, from strangers, even from people who claimed to love me. Fame has a way of circling back, offering you the same poison in a prettier cup. And the scary part? It tastes familiar. Before I tell you how fame tried to test me, don't forget to subscribe, because success isn't always sweet. Sometimes, it's just revenge wearing lipstick. The more my brand grew, the more invitations I received. Fashion weeks, after-parties, interviews, events I once dreamed of attending. And that's where the whispers began again. You've changed. You're too serious now. You used to be humble. At first, I brushed them off. Then, one night at a gala, I overheard two designers talking near the bar. "She's talented," one said, "but don't you think all that silent girl turned success story thing is just a PR strategy?" The other laughed. "Probably. No one gets that lucky twice." I didn't turn around. I didn't defend myself. Because I had learned, silence unsettles people who crave attention. Still, their words lingered. Did people see me as authentic? Or just another carefully crafted image? And in that question, I caught a glimpse of what Clara must have felt, that gnawing insecurity, that hunger to stay relevant. But I refused to become her shadow. That night, I went home and sat before my old sketchbook, the same one Clara once copied from. The pages smelled of graphite and dreams. I ran my fingers over the faded lines and whispered to myself. You started this because you loved creating. Don't forget that. It was grounding, the reminder that art, not revenge, had built my new life. A few months later, I received a call from a women's organization that wanted to feature me as a mentor for young designers who'd faced bullying or betrayal. It felt full circle. I accepted without hesitation. At the first workshop, I stood before a room full of girls, bright-eyed, nervous, hopeful. Some reminded me of my younger self. I told them my story, not the tabloid version, not the dramatic one, but the truth. About friendship, envy, pain, and how silence, when used with purpose, can be strength, not weakness. When I finished, a girl in the front row raised her hand. "Did you ever forgive her?" she asked quietly. Her question hit harder than I expected. If you're still watching, hit subscribe, because the answer to that question changed everything for me. I thought about it for a long time. Forgiveness. Did I forgive Clara? The part of me that had suffered wanted to say no, that she didn't deserve it. But another part, the part that had healed, whispered something softer. Yes, I said finally. Not for her. For me. Because forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means refusing to let it keep living inside you. It means walking into the future without dragging the chains of the past. The room went silent. And in that moment, I realized something. Revenge may have been my fuel, but forgiveness was my freedom. After that day, my work took on a different life. My next collection wasn't about proving anything. It was about transformation, raw, gentle, human. Each design carried a story of resilience, not revenge. And when the show ended, the applause felt different. It wasn't validation. It was connection. Weeks later, as I walked out of another event, a journalist stopped me and asked, "What's the secret to your success, Ariana?" I smiled. "Silence," I said. "But not the kind you use to hide, the kind you use to heal." And I meant it. Because I wasn't the girl who needed to fight anymore. I was the woman who'd already won. Before we move to the final part, make sure you subscribe, because in part 6, I'll show you how life came full circle. How I faced Clara one last time, and what I told her will stay with you long after this story ends. They say time heals all wounds. But what if time brings back the person who caused them, asking for forgiveness you're not sure you can give? The last conversation. You think time will erase people like Clara? You think they'll disappear, carried off by the wind of their own mistakes? But sometimes, the past knocks again, not to hurt you, but to see if it still can. It was 2 years after the case. 2 years since my brand became a household name, since peace finally felt like mine. The chaos had faded, replaced by calm routines, morning walks, coffee before sunrise, soft music while I worked. My life was quiet now, beautifully ordinary. Until one evening, as I was leaving my studio, I saw her. She stood at the end of the street, hesitant, smaller somehow. Her once glossy hair was dull, her eyes tired. But it was her, Clara. My best friend. My betrayer. The ghost I thought I'd buried under years of silence. She didn't speak at first. She just stood there, clutching her bag, trembling like she'd been rehearsing this moment for months. Finally, she whispered, "Ari, please don't walk away." And for a second, a single, fragile second, I saw the girl I'd once shared laughter with, not the rival who tried to destroy me. Before I tell you what happened between us, make sure to subscribe, because sometimes the hardest part of revenge is deciding when to stop fighting. I stayed silent, waiting. She took a step closer. "I know you have every reason to hate me," she said. "And maybe I deserve that. But I needed to see you. Just once." Her voice cracked, that same voice that once whispered secrets and promises in high school hallways. Now, it carried the weight of regret. "What do you want, Clara?" I asked quietly. She swallowed hard. "To apologize. Not for the headlines, not for the case, for everything. For being jealous. For hurting you. For pretending I was your friend when I was really your shadow." Her words were soft but heavy. And as much as I'd imagined this confrontation for years, the lines I'd rehearsed, the anger I'd promised to release, in that moment, all I felt was tired. I looked at her and said, "You didn't need to become my enemy to find your worth. But you chose to. And I had to become strong enough to survive it." She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I lost myself," she said. "And when I saw you succeeding, I blamed you for what I didn't have. I wanted your light so badly, I forgot to build my own." Something in me softened. Not for what she'd done, but for what she'd become. A reminder that jealousy doesn't make people powerful. It makes them hollow. We sat on a nearby bench, the city lights flickering like tiny confessions around us. She told me everything, the guilt, the loneliness, how fame had chewed her up and spit her out. How she couldn't walk into a room without whispers. How every mirror now showed her the cost of envy. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red. "I've started over," she said. "I work at a small community design center now. We teach girls who can't afford school how to sew, how to dream again. It's not glamorous, but it's good." For the first time in years, I smiled at her. "That's the best thing you've ever told me," I said. "If you believe people can change, or at least try, then subscribe. Because this part isn't about revenge anymore. It's about release." We talked for nearly an hour. About the old days, the laughter, the hurt, the lessons. And as the conversation wound down, she looked at me with tear-filled eyes and said, "Do you forgive me?" I paused. The old me, the one who'd cried herself to sleep over her betrayal, wanted to say no. But the woman I had become? She just wanted peace. "I already did," I said softly. "A long time ago." Her shoulders shook. She covered her face and cried, the kind of cry that comes from the center of the soul. And for the first time, I reached out and held her hand. Not because she deserved it, but because I did. When she finally stood to leave, she whispered, "You were always prettier, Ari. But it was never about that. You were kind. That's what I envied most." And then she walked away, no drama, no final words, just the quiet sound of closure. That night, I went home and stood in front of the mirror. I saw myself, not the girl who had been betrayed, not the woman who had fought back, but someone whole. Someone free. Revenge had given me justice, yes. But forgiveness. Forgiveness had given me peace. I whispered one last thing to the reflection staring back at me. "You don't need to win against anyone else anymore. You already did." And as I turned off the light, I felt something I hadn't in years, lightness. Like the chapter had finally closed. Last conversation. Jealousy may start wars between friends, but forgiveness ends them. And the sweetest success is living well, quietly, confidently, beautifully.